Welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space. We are rounding out the month of March with 2 episodes on sleep. So I'm going to chat with you about sleep, and at some point we're going to find a good place to break this into 2, because the reality is there's so much information about sleep that I could give to you. And I also know that there's only a little bit of information that you're actually going to grasp and put to use. And everyone's going to grasp something a little bit different. So let's dive into this idea. The first thing I want to tell you is that sleep is an essential part of our wellness. And in our first season of the podcast, I recorded 2, maybe 3 episodes on sleep. It's maybe you're in a different place in your life and you're going to grab some different information. But I'd also encourage you, if you are a person who is struggling with sleep, listen to these 2 episodes, go back and listen to the previous episodes. Make sure you listen to the episodes that we've shared this month of March about sleep with regards to nutrition and things like that, because I promise you that unless you have a medical condition or take a medication or live in an environment that makes it impossible for you to sleep, if you put these things into place that I'm going to share with you today, you will be able to sleep. I promise you that. But you have to do them, and you have to do them consistently over a period of time, because what we know about the body is that we have a circadian rhythm, right? You've all heard this idea of the circadian rhythm. If we take it back eons ago, people didn't have clocks. They rose with the sun, they slept with the sun, right? The sun comes up, they wake up, their body starts to calm down when the sun goes down, and they go to sleep. So what happens is that our body naturally produces melatonin in order to help us go to sleep. Because of the world that we live in now, we have clocks, we have alarms, we have electronics, we have screens, we have activities, we have all kinds of things that happen at all kinds of times of day or night. Let's not even get into our poor shift work folks. Our bodies don't know when to create melatonin. They just don't. I remember pretty specifically when my kids were little, we had a bedtime routine, and we were not regimented with that bedtime routine, but we held pretty close to it, because if they went to sleep easily and slept well, then I went to sleep easily and slept well, and that was important to me. So think about as a baby, right? When it's time to go to bed, what typically happens. Now, I realize there are homes that are outside of the norm. I realize that there are infants that are born into homes with older kids, and they're, running and rolling with activities until 9, 10 o'clock at night. But if you can think back to maybe that first child that you had, when there maybe weren't so many other distractions happening, sometime between 7 and 8, things calm down in the house, right? You've had dinner, you've done the dishes, you've tidied up, things are calm. It's time for a bath. It's time for the lotion. It's time for pajamas. It's time for a bedtime story. I used to sing a song and say prayers to my kids. All of those things started to tell my kids' bodies that it was time to start to produce melatonin. So by the time they got into their crib, they were just about there. Sometimes I took advantage of being able to hold a sleeping baby. But a lot of times I made sure that they were in their cribs so that they could learn how to fall asleep on their own. At some point along our journey of life, that changes. I would say it probably happens in the teenage years, just knowing that those little bundles of joy that went to sleep so easily that I was just talking about are now teenagers who put me to bed at night. The schedule tends to change sometime around teenage years, and it's not until we find ourselves in a place of needing to be more scheduled that we tend to go back to that. So even as little kids, right? Even as toddlers or school age children, there's still that pattern, that routine that tells our body it's time to go to sleep. We as adults have to get into routines. Just this week, I woke up in the morning, had some downtime, jumped onto social media, and a very dear friend of our family was posting about insomnia. And they've tried everything, they don't know what to do, they don't know what the problem is. And there's lots of people on my social media feeds that talk about it. There's lots of people that come into my office over the course of the last several years that talk about not being able to sleep. There are medications that impact our ability to sleep, and there's very important medications that we have to take. There are medical conditions that impact our ability to sleep. Those are two things that you need to speak to your primary care, your medical doctor about, because if it's a side effect of a medication, maybe there's a different medication. Maybe there's not. I don't know. Got to talk to that primary care doctor about, is there a better medication that we can try? You might have a medical condition that makes it hard to sleep. I will tell you, 40-ish year old person, sometimes the night sweats get a little bit distracting for sleeping through the night. But there are ways to combat that. There's ways to talk to your doctor about supplements or whatever. So, medical condition or medications side effects, talk to your doctor. Please talk to your doctor. There are important environmental things that have to happen in order for our bodies to be conducive to sleep. And I know that some people live in environments where it's just chaos. And to those people, I tell you, it's even more important to harness what you can control, because there is so much out of your control that you cannot harness. I'm going to give you a completely out of the box, exaggerated example. My husband's family, we camp every now and again up in West Virginia in the mountains, and the place that we like to camp is at the bottom of a hill. And at the top of the hill, I mean, you can see it, right? Like it's 100 yards, if that far. There's a train track. And we sleep in tents. And there's a train that comes through, I don't know, 3 times a day, including 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, up to 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it runs all day, every day. It's a little difficult to sleep when there's a train. And because of where we are, there's a crossing, so it's gotta blow the. There's another place that we have camped before down in Virginia Beach that is right outside of the naval base, and there are fighter jets that fly through there at all hours of the day and night because they have to do night flying, they have to do day flying. It's really loud to sleep in a tent underneath of a fighter jet blasting through. So if you are one of those people who lives near the train tracks or next to the base where they're flying all the time. Where we live, there is a base. They don't fly as frequently as they do where we used to camp, but I know they still do. So environmentally, you might have things that just are not within your control, which makes the routine more important, because we do have to learn to sleep through things. And believe it or not, when we're sleeping, our bodies, our brains are aware of what's happening around us, but we're able to sleep through it because we assess, even in that not unconscious but not conscious mind, we assess that it's okay. You know, it's kind of like when my kids were little and I would like perk up long enough to like hear that they're moving, but they're not crying. They don't really need my attention. I don't really wake up, but I at least was aware. So taking environmental things out of the picture, the things that are out of your control, I want you to think about how you can harness from the minute that you wake up until the minute that you go to bed, harness a sleep hygiene that is going to make you primed for sleep. Most people don't realize that your sleep routine starts from the minute that you wake up, because from the minute that we wake up, anything and everything we do is either setting us up for good sleep or it is sabotaging us. If you think about movement, if you think about what you're feeding and fueling your body, if you think about caffeine intake, if you think about stress, all of those things that happen during your waking hours impact sleep. There's a book written by very famous trauma researcher, Basil Van and he wrote the book called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm not recommending that you all go out and read it. It's a good book, but my warning is that it's a little heady, right? It's a little academic for the average person. But the important thing to remember is that little stress, big trauma, anything in between, the body kind of keeps a register of those things. So, what you're experiencing during the course of your day in terms of stress or major trauma, the body keeps a catalog of that. And if you're not processing it and managing it during the course of your conscious awake time, the body has to do something with it while you're asleep. When I was 7 years old, I was in a really bad car accident, like flatlined, had to get the paddles. It was a whole thing. So fortunate for the first responders and the doctors that helped me to live another day, and thank God for that blessing. But after that accident, and for several years after, I had night terrors. I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming bloody murder. The first time it happened, my brother slept in the bottom of like the basement of our house, and I slept on the floor above him, and my parents were on the other side. They thought I was being murdered. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because the screaming that came from me as I was running from my room to my parents' room just scared the living daylights out of everybody. So this went on for a period of time. There was no real triggers. We couldn't figure out a pattern. It just happened. It wasn't nightmares. I never had a nightmare about anything. One time I think the cat like jumped on the bed or something, but anyway, we were talking to the neurosurgeon who had done my surgery after the accident, and he said exactly what we know, which is consciously, I had no recollection of this motor vehicle accident. There's several days prior to the accident and several days after the accident that I have no memory of, but my body knows. And so those night terrors were my body's way of releasing the trauma and the stress from my body, and I had no control over it. And so because I had no conscious memory of the accident, I probably could have worked through it. Now being a trauma therapist and knowing how trauma therapy works, I probably could have worked through it, but over time they went away, which was great. It was a blessing. I'm not saying that everyone's getting in these major motor vehicle accidents every day, but we are experiencing stress, and we are experiencing little t type traumas, and some people experience big traumas. And if we don't process them, we don't talk about them, we don't work through them, feel the feelings, then when we put our head on that pillow at night, what ends up happening is that our brain has that information. Our body is holding on to all of the stress hormone, the cortisol, the potentially adrenaline, and then now we're expecting our body to go to sleep. We might fall asleep, but then we're waking up because we've got a stress response going on. So it's really important to think about the way that you go through your day. I realize that it is impossible to not experience stress. We live in a world where life happens and we experience stress. So while we want to look at minimizing our experience of stress, we want to minimize our stressors in our life. What we really need to do is we need to maximize our ability to manage the stress. It's kind of like a juggler, right? You're going to have to hold on to all those things that are happening in life, but how are you managing it? What things can you put aside to manage what's in front of you, and what things can you put down? Certainly, stress management is a topic for a podcast for another day. But when we're talking about sleep, we have to keep those things in mind. If we are in a very high stress situation during the course of our day and then we just go to bed, then it's no wonder we toss and turn. We can't fall asleep. We wake up in the middle of the night because we haven't processed those things. So, looking at how to engage in healthy habits throughout the course of your day, maximizing the use of those skills in order to ensure that you are priming yourself for sleep. When we're priming ourselves for sleep, what we're doing is looking at what are the good, healthy habits that we are already engaging in, that we can continue to engage in, and what are the bad, unhealthy, not so good habits that we are engaging in. I am not encouraging you to completely flip your world upside down and to change everything. What I'm encouraging you to do is to consider what small changes can you make over the course of time that is going to make a difference. Change one thing today and give it 7 to 10 days and just change that one thing. Then add one more thing. Give it another 7 to 10 days. Give it time to get into the routine. Give your body a chance to get acclimated to that. A couple of months ago, I decided that I wanted to read and in the evening because I I I was kind of reading work related books during the day and I wanted to read something fun. So I started getting ready for bed around 9 and then going into my bedroom, well, getting into my bed at 9:30 and reading until about 10. It didn't take very long for my body to start getting tired around 9, and I would start to yawn and I would start to feel the melatonin kicking in. And so my body now tells me it's time to go get ready for bed and to go ahead and read. Sometimes the melatonin has kicked in too much and there's no reading happening because I'm just tired, but you have to give it some time. I'm not encouraging you to make a ton of changes over time. I'm encouraging you to pick one thing that you're not doing or pick one thing that's unhealthy and consider how you can change that. I'm not going to go into the benefits of a healthy sleep routine. I'm going to encourage you to jump back to season 1 and listen to that so that we can really just today dive into how can I make changes. I already mentioned this idea of waking up in the morning and setting yourself up. So you're going to look at your day as two bookends, my morning routine and my evening routine. And you're going to work backwards. You're going to work backwards starting with your morning routine, looking at your morning routine and considering what time do you need to wake up in order to leave your house to start your day or to just start your day if you're not leaving your house. And then counting backwards 8 hours. Here's my little soapbox moment. Some of you may be saying, oh, I'm fine with 4 or 5 hours. Okay. You can function, but are you functioning well? Probably not. We know that the body needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Period. End of discussion. People do it with less, but they're not maximizing and thriving. They're just surviving and getting through the day. So, 8 hours. I'm going to use myself as an example just because it's easier that way. Let's say that I need to wake up at 6 a.m. In order to leave my house by, 7:30. So 6 a.m., I'm going to count backwards 8 hours. That's 10 p.m. That means in bed, lights out, ready to go to sleep at 10 p.m. If I am a person that lays in bed for 30, 45 minutes to an hour, which I used to be, then I need to probably be in bed by 9 so that I can kind of get into sleep by 10 to make sure I'm getting 8 hours of sleep. And that's going to take some navigation in terms of what my bedtime routine looks like. Some people are going to say, yeah, I'm not even getting home from my kids' practices until 9 o'clock, much less be able to get to bed by 9 o'clock. I get it. Sleep is something we can't bank. So if you get 12 hours of sleep tonight and you only get 6 hours of sleep tomorrow night, that's not shared between the two nights. But if you can try for the most part as consistently as possible to get 8 hours of sleep, then what we know is that, okay, if I need to be in bed ready to go to sleep at 10, what time does my evening routine need to start? Your evening routine, like I said, starts in the morning. So 6 a.m., right? Maybe I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have some caffeine. I direct you to our nutrition blog and podcasts about nutrition and the impact of caffeine, because even 1 cup of coffee with caffeine in the morning can impact your ability to go to sleep and stay asleep in the evening. So if you're a morning coffee person, consider 1 cup. Here's the other thing. Once you're getting good solid sleep, you're not going to think that you need caffeine anymore. You're not going to need caffeine anymore. But we don't sleep, so we're tired. So we take caffeine, so we're not tired. And then we don't sleep because we had caffeine. It's this cycle. And at some point, we have to figure out how to break it. So we're going to look at what does that morning look like, right? For people who are in high stress situation, for people who are waking up in the middle of the night, they very likely have high cortisol levels and need to reset their circadian rhythm. Sunlight exposure is very important for resetting the circadian rhythm and helping your body to understand when it's supposed to wake up and when it's supposed to go to sleep. I wake up before the sun comes up because I work out in the morning, and I can't get sunlight within 30 minutes of waking up because I wake up before that. But if I was a person who woke up in the middle of the night, what I would very likely do is I would go on Amazon and I would buy a light box. Light boxes are really helpful tools for those of you that grew up in the 80s. You remember the vanities that had the big lights, and they had the mirror in it that we did all of our crazy hair and makeup. So it's similar to that. It's a box that you would sit like on a nightstand or a table, and 15, 20, 30 minutes of that light can help to reset your circadian rhythm. You can find those on Amazon. If you do wake up and you have the ability to get some sunlight within about 30 minutes of waking, then do that. Either sit in front of a window, go out on the porch, go for a walk, take the dog for a walk, whatever it is. Even if it's a little later than 30 minutes, if you're waking up with your kids, walk them to the bus stop, stand outside of the car with them at the bus stop, get that sunlight exposure so that you can start to reset your body. There's previous podcasts about the importance of sunlight, so check that out. You want to move your body during the course of the day. You've heard me say it before, I love to stack habits. I love to do multiple things at one time. If you have to take your dog for a walk, take the dog for an extra long walk. You're getting sunlight, you're getting movement, you're getting fresh air, and you're taking the dog for a walk. You're doing it all at one time. Guess what? You don't need to go for a walk later in the day unless you want to, because you just got it in with the dog. Walking your kids to the bus stop. You got to take your kids to the bus stop anyway. The movement would be great for everybody. If you can, take that walk. Where else can you put movement into the course of the day? Even if it's just 5 to 10 minute blocks throughout the course of the day, going for a walk around the building if you have a break between meetings or phone calls. Going for a walk. I've done this before here at the office. I've gone for a walk around the parking lot before I get in my car to go home, because I know that once I get home, it's go, go, go. We've got things to do. Getting movement going. The more you move your body, well, movement has so many benefits, but for sleep, the more you move your body, the more physically tired your body is going to be. The more you move your body, you're getting rid of some of that energy that the stress and the trauma, little t or big T trauma is holding, right? Your body holds that stress, it holds that cortisol, it holds that adrenaline, it holds all that stuff. If you've ever, sometimes I'll feel like there's just electricity running through my body. I'm not really shaking or anything, but it just feels like it. And I know that that's when I need to go for a walk. I need to go lift some weights. I need to do something because there's energy in my body and I have to get it out. When our body has released the energy, and when our body is physically tired because we have exerted that energy, it's more likely to go to sleep because it's not trying to do other things. It's not trying to process all that energy. It's not trying to figure out where to put all that stagnant blood because you haven't been moving your body throughout the course of the day, right? Kind of a weird description of it, but not to get too sciencey, right? We have to move our bodies in order to be able to go to sleep. If you are a person that says, well, I can't exercise, talk to your doctor about what you can do. Because I would probably want to talk to a doctor that tells someone that they cannot walk, they cannot swim, they cannot ride a stationary bike. Talk to your doctor. If you are an older person and you're like, yeah, I'm not hitting the gym, I'm not going for a run, go for a walk around your neighborhood. There's been times that I've gotten home and it's been getting too dark for me to go for a walk. I just walk up and down my driveway. I mean, it's boring, but I listen to an audiobook and I just walk up and down my driveway. It's safe, and I just walk up and down the driveway. So if you're not currently moving your body, move your body. We know that alcohol, drugs, including cigarettes with nicotine, it all impacts the way that our body is processing about what are you consuming during the course of the day. Everything you consume, whether it's through your mouth, through your nose, through your eyes, through your ears, everything that you consume impacts your ability to sleep. So if you're smoking cigarettes or you're vaping or you're drinking, doing recreational drugs, we're asking our body to do more than it might otherwise need to, which then impacts its ability to go to sleep. It impacts the body's ability to rest. So consider what you are ingesting. I want to go back to movement for a second. You may need to consider, if you are a person who is not currently exercising, you might need to consider during the course of the day when you're going to exercise. Most people need to not do strenuous exercise within about 3 hours of going to sleep. It increases adrenaline, it increases, dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine and all of it just increases everything in our body, and it makes it harder to the melatonin to then suppress all those things to go to sleep. There was a period in my life, full disclosure, I would put my kids to bed at 8 o'clock. I would be wearing my workout clothes when I put my kids to bed at 8 o'clock. I would work out from 8 to 9, take a shower, chill out for a little while, and go to bed at 10. And it worked beautifully for me because I was so tired from that workout from 8 to 9 that I crashed. I'm not in that phase of my life right now. I am in a phase of my life where waking up earlier and getting it out of the way is much more productive for me. So where you put that movement is really important. Now, I can go for a walk after dinner or, go to the gym in the evening with my husband and my kids and like walk on the treadmill, and that doesn't impact my ability to go to sleep. But if I'm going to do like a run or some lifting weights, I'm not doing it too close to bedtime.
Thanks for tuning in to part 1 of our 2-part episode, Sleep is Kind of a Big Deal. Join us again on Tuesday, March 26th for part 2 and learn more about the tangible interventions you can deploy for healthy, sustainable, and restorative sleep patterns.